What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of JTC, Jibreel Talks Comics. This is my show where I talk about comics. I'm Jibreel, and let's get started. So, before we ever get into the real business of the episode, we take a little bit of time for the bev. This is, as you can tell, a hot coffee. We're not doing iced anymore. I don't know about where you're at in the country, but right here, I'm in the States right now. If you're other places in the world, your temperatures may vary. Here, it's frosty, but it's not like East Coast of the U.S. frosty right now. We're talking high 40s, 50s. The West Coast, we get it pretty mild, but it was still a little cold for me. So I was like, you know what? Iced beverages, they're done for the year probably. I'm probably not going to revisit that until, March, April maybe of next year. We have a stunning apple caramel syrup. Nice little vegan syrup. Don't worry about no dairy in here. Same roaster as last week. So I'm excited about that. But we have a pretty good show planned. No stories this week. All the stories were last week of all the, not leaks, but like early looks at from Marvel related to New York Comic Con. New York Comic Con I don't think has happened yet. So once that comes, we'll have a lot more context for upcoming comic series that are coming and stuff related to Hickman's Ultimate stuff. But we have a lot to cover. Let's just get into the poll list first, and then we'll get into what else I read. So let's just start with Ultimate Invasion by Jonathan Hickman. This is number 4, so this is the end of this 4-issue miniseries that is chronicling the transition from the Maker in 616 being trapped by the Fantastic Four to him rebirthing his new Ultimate Universe, or 6160. This is the end of that series. And I'm going to give you guys my thoughts. If you want real nitty-gritty thoughts about Ultimate Invasion and what I think, go check out an interview I just did with Yuhu Comic Review. It's up now. Go check it out on his YouTube page. I'm going to link it down below. I've actually done 2 interviews recently. I'm actually going to plug them both. I'll plug them both at the end of the show, but I'll plug them now too. Go check that out. And then I also, Zach's Comix Box, I did a interview with him about Wonder Woman. So if you're looking for my thoughts about Wonder Woman Ultimate Invasion, go to their channels. Go check out those interviews. They were really, really great. I was so appreciative for them even having me on. But let's get into this. Got a cover A here. Didn't go with any of the variants. I haven't really liked any of the variants for any of these, with exception for like the Wasp Peach Momoko cover for the first one. Yeah, it was the first issue. All the rest, for the most part, I'm like, I'll just keep it. I think this is like Brian Hitch does the covers as well for these. They're not connecting, even though they kind of look like they would. They're not connecting variants. But let's get into the major plot points for this one. Basically, this picks up where the last one left off, with Howard Stark working with Reed Richards / Doctor Doom, this kind of altered version of Reed Richards. And they're working together to build this kind of Immortus engine thing for the Maker. They go to present their creation, and they both kind of conspired together to actually build, effectively, it seems like a portal for Kang to come in with his all the time. I don't know how you would, removed from their time period, a whole bunch of variants of the Ultimates to attack the Maker. They fight each other, and you get a little cool time play, and I guess they're both kind of taken off the board for now. You have Howard Stark's unclear what his fate is. There is an interesting moment where he unmasks Kang, and we're not sure who that is. I have my theory. It is probably wrong, but if you're, again, this is huge spoilers for anybody who hasn't read Ultimate Invasion. I'm thinking it might be like a future version of Tony, because if you look at the look of Kang in this universe, it's very Iron Man-y. And then at the end of this series, you see Tony take up the armor finally as Iron Lad. And so it makes me, and if you look at Howard's face, and it's kind of like a shock and disappointment, it tells me, okay, so he's close to, or he at least has some kind of relationship to whoever that Kang is. And so that tells me only a couple directions it can go in terms of the people we know he's even related to. For that response from Howard, it would have to be, so we saw Obadiah Stane die, so we know he's off the board. It would have to be Tony. There's nobody really else from the family. I mean, what, is it going to be Jarvis or something like that? If it was somebody else, if it was like another Reed Richards, I don't think he has that reaction. If it's somebody else from this, if it's, I just don't see it being anybody else. So my guess is that it's Tony Stark from the future or something like that. Maybe becomes Kang in a attempt to play with time to find his father, and over time is like corrupted by that. I don't know. That would be an interesting development, but that's my guess for right now. I might be wrong. But overall, I would say the series is fine. I think one of the major things it suffers from is just pacing issues related to how short of a timeline Jonathan Hickman was working with here, in terms of like, we only got like 4 issues that he's working with here, so he had to mock speed it at times and then slow things down dramatically for just lore and exposition, because there's only so fast you can go when you're trying to like info dump on the pages, which, you know, if Hickman's gonna do one thing, it's gonna be info dump at some point. And so things would slow down, aka like issue 3, but then all the rest, especially this issue, kind of really hit. You get from Kang's introduction to Kang coming into the world, to facing off to the Maker, to them being defeated, to them taken off the board, and then fast forward to Captain America being found in the ice by Iron Lad, really fast, in fast succession. But so there's still a lot of questions. We still have one more one-shot before I think this Ultimate Universe actually like kicks off. It's a one-shot that comes out in November called Ultimate Universe. I'm probably going to pick it up, so I'll give it a read. To me, in my head, I'm considering that as kind of like an honorary Ultimate Invasion 5, if you will. But and then in January, Ultimate Spider-Man kicks off, and I would imagine that's the formal beginning of this updated or recreated Ultimate Universe. So I'm excited for it. The miniseries was fine. I wasn't like blown away by it. It's Hickman, so I still think it's decently written, and Brian Hitch's art is pretty solid. I've never been the hugest Hitch fan. I liked them back in the day, like, you know, like Mark Miller and stuff like that. But these days, it's fine. I think I like it more here than I like it in The Last Days of Lex Luthor, the Superman Black Label book. So I would say I like it more than that. But overall, you know, it's cool. But let's keep it moving. We have an X-Men book here. We have Jean Grey #2. This is probably the last single issue version I'm going to pick up of this, and then I'm going to pick up the trade when it comes out. I think the trade's probably not going to come out until March-ish, maybe, or something like that. So I'll just hold out for that. This is a beautiful Peach Momoko cover that I love, kind of depicting her in her Phoenix form. And structurally, this book is very similar to the first one, where it's simultaneously a retrospective at the same time as a what-if scenario. So this one plays back into her Phoenix experience where they go into space and she's kind of impacted by the Phoenix. But in this one, we have other carriers now, historically throughout X-Men lore. Lots of people who have had the Phoenix mantle, but in the way that it plays out here, it's pretty unique. So in this version, you get, at some point, Logan actually has control of the Phoenix, then it kind of goes to Scott, then it goes back to Logan, and then they both kind of, Wolverine dies at the end. So it's pretty good. Like, I liked the first issue more, but I still like very much what they're doing here. It's very well written. It's just a fun look at the character of Jean Grey through different eras and her motivations and what she's trying to do. And this one, I think, lightly dabbles on some of the psychology behind her. Infatuation is not the right word, but attraction to Logan, obviously not on a physical level, but on a mental level, when they kind of had these moments where they connect and she can kind of see his pain, that I think there's something that ties them together that is very unique to them, that is very distinct from her and Scott's relationship, for example, where Scott has had a rough go, but again, it's not trauma Olympics, but like Logan's journey is uniquely harsh, uniquely rough, from up until the moment that he meets the X-Men, and then things don't necessarily get better for him. But yeah, he had a really rough go for quite a while, and it's kind of seeing all the pain that he went through, but at the same time arrives in a place where he still kind of wants to help people, or at least lend his efforts to that. You know, it makes a lot more sense. You know, I've never loved the Jean Grey, Scott, Wolverine, not throuple, but like three-way romance thing between them. I've kind of always been over it, to be honest with you. But I do appreciate that they're taking the time to answer the questions, like, what does Jean see in him? And, you know, it makes a lot of sense. So overall, really great book. One of the better Fall of X books. The cool thing about this, though, it is a Fall of X book, but I think it's a Fall of X book kind of like in placement only, just because it's coming out now. it has really nothing to do with everything that happened, other than this is, again, her reflecting in her moment of death after what happened at the Hellfire Gala. So, yeah, good stuff. Let's keep it moving. We have Tales of the Titans number 3, Donna Troy. So, and I have this beautiful Rose Betch cover that I absolutely love. I don't usually get the Rose Betch covers because there's usually just another variant for it that I like a little bit more. You know, sometimes with the Batmans, I like the Delatos a little bit more, even though I do gravitate towards like cuter variants more often. But I'm just not really into the chibi style. But this one is definitely the style from Rose Betch that I like the most. And overall, yeah, no, this was a really fun book. This one, as you would imagine, is all about Donna Troy, and it's specifically about her going to Markovia because she found out that, what's his name? Bedlam. Yeah. Is it Major Bedlam? Something like that. Something Bedlam is basically targeting a marginalized group and putting them in camps, really. And it's pretty hardcore stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna pull it up on my end just so I make sure I get the names right. We have Baron Bedlam, not Major. Baron Bedlam, basically, yeah, is targeting a marginalized group. Obviously, there are allegories that you can make pretty literally to the Holocaust. There's certainly a kind of anti-immigration feel for what they're doing over in Markovia. So she goes over there and uses kind of both parts of her power. And on one hand, she is, Donna Troy, the Amazon, so she's able to physically free a lot of people and combat Baron Bedlam. But then on the other side, she's using the power of the camera to kind of capture all the atrocities that are happening, so when he kind of goes to trial, they can make a case against him and then kind of bring it to people's forefront in the news. It is also interesting that they kind of do tackle the idea that like there's this kind of denialism that happens in certain people where they'll like see obvious pictures of like, look what's happening, and there'll still be some people who are like don't believe it or think it's like manufactured or anything like that. So very interesting stuff. I'm just glad that Donna Troy is getting her moment. Is it the best Donna Troy story? No. It is kind of annoying too that at the end of it they dabble back on the origin stuff, which has been overdone to hell. I don't know what their fascination is with Donna investigating and looking into the parent thing and the fire. It was tackled fine and perfectly in that one the new Teen Titans back in like 87 or something like that, 87, 88. It was done already, so I don't know why they're still kind of dabbling on that. But overall, very fun issue. I'm glad I picked this up. There's not a series that I'm subscribed to. I kind of picked up Starfire and then Donna Troy. I skipped Raven, and then next up is Beast Boy, and I'm probably not going to get that either. Next one, we have Spirit World number 5, the second to last series or issue. Cover B here. I don't know who's doing this cover. Let's see. Do they say it on the cover? They don't. Okay. Written by Alyssa Wong. Continues to be an amazing series. I love the art in this, and just a lot of great action. And it's reaching its climax now. You get some cool Xanthi action and her kind of facing off against a possessed version of Constantine and Cassandra Cain. But yeah, no, not too much to report on this narratively. Some cool things happen where you find out that I believe her name is Poe is actually associated with this kind of like pantheon of gods that are present in the spirit world there. But yeah, this is definitely a sleeper hit. Like I don't see a lot of people talking about this, and I really hope that it spills into something larger, hopefully getting Xanthi in like Justice League Dark or something like that, which I feel like this perfectly segues into having Constantine present there, and her with her connections to magic and the spirit world in general. It makes sense to have her part of like a new Justice League Dark. So I'm hoping that's what it's leading to. This is just kind of a Xanthi specific series. That's what I'm hoping. But yeah, overall very fun. So if you're looking for something very different, it barely connects to anything that's happening in the rest of the DC universe. Its main connection is actually related to Lazarus Planet, that event. That's kind of where she first popped up during the We Were Legends or something like that, or We Are Legends, something like that, of tie-in for Lazarus Planet. So definitely check that out if you're looking for something fun to read from DC that feels very different. And then lastly is one that I'm sad to say is the end of my journey with Harley Quinn for right now. This first off, gorgeous Jenny Frison cover here. This is a series that I've been pretty skeptical about for quite a while now. I've just not been feeling the direction that they've gone narratively pretty much since Tini Howard jumped in. And again, I'm not a Tini Howard hater whatsoever. I actually like what she's doing on Catwoman, for example. her Captain, what was it? Not Captain Marvel. Betsy Braddock. There we go. Captain Britain. Their Captain Britain series with Betsy Braddock, Knights of X, Excalibur. All this stuff's pretty solid. It's not really my cup of tea. I liked Captain Britain the most of those series, but she does a lot of great work. And so for this one, I was like gonna give it a shot, and I was already skeptical off rip when they kind of went in the multiversal direction, but we're multiple issues in now, and they're still on that, and I just don't think it's particularly compelling material. I think it's a little bit hard to follow at times, and it's kind of tough because they throw a lot of ideas at you, but it's all kind of not comedically, but like very lightheartedly treated. So it's very confusing as to like how should I even invest the time into seriously analyzing what's happening here, or kind of just going along with it. And yeah, this multiversal police Jimmy Olsen thing that they're doing, I'm over it. Don't like it. And whenever there's like sprinkles of moments between her and like Pam, I feel like Poison Ivy's the series where you get the good Harley Pam stuff. But yeah, no, and again, it's not that I'm asking for Harley to be like a serious book or anything like that. Like, keep the comedy, keep doing what you want to do, but like stop with the multiverse thing. Keep her on Earth, have her do fun things. I actually didn't hate what they were doing before this run. There was a little multiverse Harley thing that was not great either, but before that, like, there was some fun stuff they were doing. So I don't know why. I want her actually involved in the Gotham Underground, way closer to what they're doing with like Punchline and Catwoman. I want her in that world, preferably. I loved her in like Joker War and stuff like that. So why they insist on getting her into these weird, inconsequential storylines that have no implications to not even her, let alone the rest of the DCU, is kind of frustrating. So I think, yeah, I'm gonna drop this book for now. I would say for now, because if it gets good again, I'd love to more than happily support, because I love the idea of women writing women. I want to support that preferably. But this book, like, it's a $6 book, man. This was, yeah, $5.99. $6 for the book, man, for something that I'm not enjoying whatsoever. Like, I can't float that no more. The interesting thing is I'm probably going to drop it with this book, but I think there's going to be an art germ variant that they do around the holidays, like November, December territory, that I might need to pick that up since I get everything art germ. So that might be me dipping back into it, but for now, I'm off it. I don't want to read this anymore. But I will keep an eye out for not necessarily a new creative team, but if I do see that Tini Howard is starting a new arc that is way different and not in the multiversal space, I'm more than happy. Give it a try digitally, see what I think. But for now, I'm stepping off the train. But I'm going to keep my eye on it, which breaks my heart, because Jenny Frison is also going to continue doing variants. So that means this might be my last Jenny Frison variant. So that really sucks, but what can you do, man? The times are tough, man. I can't just be spending money on whatever, especially if I'm not enjoying it. That's my big thing. It's like, if I'm not enjoying a book, like, why am I getting it? For collector's reasons? Nah, that's not compelling for me. So let's get into what else I read. It was a great week. We're going to start with DC for this one. Action Comics 1057. So you get a really cool... What I love about this book is that it definitely takes the time to explore Clark as an interviewer, as a journalist. Kind of, it has a really compelling conversation between him and this young head of this new group that is basically anti-alien, and obviously there are connections you can make to real world implications in terms of like immigration and kind of nationalist groups. It has that kind of tone to it. And so him, and there's the implication that she might know that Clark is Superman, and he's obviously way thrown off. So it is kind of interesting to see Clark in a psychologically vulnerable position, and then at the end he is attacked, and there is some cool magic play there. So overall, Action Comics 1057, I actually quite liked it quite a bit. Let's keep it moving. Green Arrow number 4, as you've known, Ollie has basically been disconnected from everything happening with his family since, I think, Dark Crisis at this point. And this is just his confrontation with Parallax, who's taking the form of the older Hal Jordan. And there are some cool commentary and discussions about the friendship that they've had and some of the resentments that they have. And as you know, the revelation that he was actually not associating with Hal Jordan during that time, and it was actually Parallax, comes from a while ago. But yeah, it's cool. I'm not mad at it. And then you also have on the other side his family looking for him, and I think it's like what, Speedy and Dina that are looking for him. So it's cool. And then they kind of, Parallax tries to show him why he's like keeping him away, and that like the attempt to reconnect them destroys everything. It's fine. I think it's spinning its wheels a little bit. I hope it kind of makes a little bit more progress soon. But yeah, Green Arrow number 4, not bad at all. Then the next one's a very interesting one. We have The Flash number 1 by Cy Spurrier. This was a book that I was very excited for because I've been wanting to get back into Flash for quite a while. But it's been a minute, and I know that Cy Spurrier, though an amazing writer, is not a particularly accessible writer. He doesn't tend to do like back to basics type stuff in my experience. When you kind of jump into stuff, he deals with a lot of concepts that are very referential to other stuff that's happened. So I expected fully that I was probably going to be super confused in this book, and I kind of was. There's lots of characters that I don't really know like that, because I used to read, so I've read some Flash back in the days here and there. I've read some events like Flashpoint. I read Flash Rebirth, maybe like the first 3 trades or something like that when that was coming out. But other than that's basically the extent of my experience with Flash. So I knew I'm jumping into the deep end here, I think, a little bit. And so I was pretty confused. There's lots of characters that I'm kind of learning for the first time. Like and I know this might sound insane, like I don't really know Impulse like that or characters like that. So I'm trying to figure it out as best I can. I think this is going to take a couple issues before I fully understand. I want to keep reading it because I think he's telling a compelling story, and I like the fact that we kind of have this Wally-driven narrative. And it's kind of insane that there's like major holes in my knowledge in terms of just even knowing where characters are. Like I don't really know what's going on with Barry Allen or anything like that related to the Justice League and all that stuff. So I'm going to keep reading, but overall what I read I thought was quite well written. I just couldn't follow it as somebody who doesn't know much about Flash. Next one is Batman, the Brave and the Bold. The only real reason I read this was for 2 reasons. I like the Tom King story, and then I know that there is this side story that I forget her name. She's from Peacemaker, that mostly. But yeah, I was reading that book, and yeah, it's cool. Like, I'm not mad at it. Let me see. Harcourt, yeah. So Harcourt has been resuscitated, and kind of she's put on a mission by Amanda Waller to track down supposedly the person who killed her, but then she has a revelation as her memory comes back that he was not the one responsible for it. So I like that little backup story in there. And then the Tom King about the first time that him and Joker met, and Joker's effectively just a serial killer, and I think he kills like 9 people and is targeting the 10th. It's pretty good stuff. I love the art on it. So I was hoping that this was the kind of last and final one, but it actually is the second to last. It said to be concluded. So they're still kind of going with that one. But yeah, it's cool. I had dropped physically picking up this series just because I didn't find that it was worth the money. It is kind of an oversized issue. But a lot of it is like Ed Brisson stuff related to, Stormwatch or whatever. And I'm just not into that whatsoever. I'm not an Ed Brisson guy like that. Like with what he's doing right now in DC, like the Stormwatch stuff, not really for me. Batman Inc., not really for me. I kind of am off that. So incredibly talented writer, don't get it twisted, but not my speed. Next one, Power Girl number 1. I actually just made a TikTok and published it this morning, time of recording. So yesterday for you guys, for anybody who's watching this new. But yeah, overall, this was a pretty fun book. I liked it. So you basically have Kara, or Power Girl, debuting her new persona as kind of like a tech entrepreneur, tech whiz, throwing an event, and basically she is attacked during that event. Omen's there with her, kind of providing support. She deals with the enemy, but disposes of, I guess, this like explosive or machine or something like that underwater, kind of like in a split-second decision, which actually causes a lot of damage related to Atlantis. So that's a problem. Superman shows up. She thinks she's getting benched, but actually Superman does make it clear, like, hey, you kind of messed up there. You probably should have. There's like a million other places you could have disposed of it, like in space, in the sun. You split-second decision, not good. Be better, basically. But then there's an interesting kind of thing where he's talking to her about a disease that is spreading that seems to be emanating from her, and so she needs to investigate that and kind of go to the Fortress of Solitude in, South America or something like that. So yeah, pretty good stuff. She's going to be investigating that. It's definitely not the direction I saw Power Girl going, especially with all those backups related to, or the tie-in stories that they had in Action Comics, and then her one-shot special where her kind of going into people's psyche and battling that, almost kind of like a Persona 5 head temple thing, or Persona 4 and 5. that's not the direction that they're going with this one. Seemingly, it's staying pretty grounded in like the world and stuff like that. So Power Girl #1, pretty fun. Excited to see where it goes. We have the Penguin #2. Loved this book. You guys know I'm a big Tom King fan, so I'm loving what he's doing with the Penguin. And this one's all about the Penguin getting the help from, you would know, Batman Killing Time, that other Tom King written series from last year. That the help from that character, he's older now, but the Penguin's trying to get him to recruit him to work on his behalf as the Penguin tries to retake over the Gotham Underground from his kids, effectively. A lot of people think the Penguin's dead. And basically you get this, I don't know if it's a weekend between the two of them, but he's trying to force the help back into the game, and eventually actually succeeds at doing so by basically killing off his entire staff. It's a brutal issue, but I think it was very, very fun to read. So the Penguin #2 is really great issue. We have Batman Catwoman, the Gotham War, Red Hood #1. Another Gotham War tie-in. This one focused on Jason specifically and him training up 2 henchmen that are working on behalf of Catwoman, but one of them specifically is kind of tortured and connected to his past with Scarecrow. Kind of a sad ending there. But it is great context for understanding the relationship specifically between Selina and Jason. So I'm not mad at it. I thought it was a pretty good book. It's not one that I got physically because I knew that this was going to be a 9-part series. I'm already collecting the Batman one. If there is a collected version with all 9 parts, I'll more than happily pick it up. Specifically in trade paperback, maybe a hardcover trade at some point. But I'll probably collect it that way. But I'm cool on the single issues for now. Let's move into Marvel. We have the Invincible Iron Man #10. So this is issue almost completely dedicated to the relationship between him and Emma. You do get some cool Fei Long stuff in there, and bringing Fei Long into the wedding and setting a trap for him to extract as much information about his past. It's very interesting. We finally know that Fei Long comes from a family of mutants and he didn't have powers, and that is kind of the root of so much of his issues and hatred and stuff like that. So it's great context to finally know what's happening with Fei Long. He first appeared, I believe, when Jerry Duggan took over X-Men some time ago. He was an early kind of person that was introduced, and so it's finally good to get some more context on his character and also understanding what this whole marriage thing was about, because it really just kind of started from a split-second decision by Tony. That when Emma was going to kill Fei Long and took off her little disguise ring, and that Fei Long stumbled across them, they kind of just improv that, hey, I'm proposing to her. It's like a stupid, fun idea. Surprising amount of marketing from Marvel, considering it's a relatively minimal storyline, whatever. But there is kind of hints, and it doesn't surprise me that, like, Tony seems to be kind of into Emma, which, I mean, Emma Frost, can you blame him? I mean, it's his type. It makes sense. She's a strong, commanding woman, so it makes sense why he'd like her like that. But it does lend itself to, like, are they gonna do this, the romance between Tony and her, or is it keeping straight transactional? For her, it doesn't seem like she's interested in him whatsoever. She did show up to the wedding, but there are strategic reasons why she'd do so. So there's lots of questions there. But let's keep moving. We have Miss Marvel, the New Mutant #2. This continues. Basically, on her college campus, she's hunted by Orcus, dealing with the fallout of just anti-mutant fervor. Right now, things are about as worse than they've ever been. She attempts to intervene with a pro-mutant protester that kind of gets driven off by the anti-mutant protests, which are way bigger, especially on that campus, which effectively is Orcus-controlled. You have a cool exchange between her and Emma, and Sync and Talon. So there's some cool stuff in here, and then it seems that Kamala is being targeted by this subsect of Orcus that seems to be associated with the Omega Sentinel. She's getting targeted by her dreams, so that's cool. It's actually reminiscent kind of what was happening with Silk just now, where they're kind of waiting for her to go into the sleep realm to attack her in the sleep realm to gain control or whatever. So it is interesting to me how many methods of attack that Orcus is willing to utilize to seeming not great ends, but whatever. Overall, a cool issue. I liked the first one better. You have this weird, like, Silver Surfer Doctor Strange character that they keep pushing, so we'll see where that goes. Realm of X #2. This is the series where you get a very strange team of heroes, specifically with, like, Typhoid Mary, Curse, Magic. You got a couple people who are sent to Vanaheim for some reason. And the first issue didn't give us much insight there, but this one answered pretty concretely. It's a curse thing. When Professor Xavier was forcing everybody through the portals during the Hellfire Gala to leave Earth specifically and go to, I guess, Araco, Curse last minute didn't want to and made a decision like, take us somewhere else that's not here but not where Professor X wants us to go, and they ended up going to Vanaheim. And Curse is sad to find out that the team is looking to leave Vanaheim without her. Do they even know that Curse is there? I don't know. But then she is under the care of Saturnine or Saturnine. I don't know how to pronounce her, but you would know her from like Ten of Swords. And I think she was also in Knights of X, deals with all the other world stuff. So it's cool. It's probably my least favorite of the Fall of X books just because I'm not really into the magic side, the magic and fantasy side of X-Men specifically. Knights of X, Excalibur, that kind of stuff, not really my cup of tea. It's cool though. It's not bad. We have the Avengers number 5 by Jed MacKay. Pretty good issue. I think this is a solid run by Jed MacKay. I think if there's anything that's working against it, it's the pacing of it. We're kind of we're 5 issues in at this point, and it feels like it's made shockingly little progress. The major revelation during this book is you have that the Avengers that are facing off against the Ashen Combine, these different people that are stationed around the world, and you have the Impossible City, and now we know that the sentient Impossible City is under the control of the Ashen Combine and is effectively a victim of them, and the Avengers try to bring the Impossible City to the point where they join the Avengers. So it's fine. It's cool. I just wanted to make a little bit more progression a little faster. At this pace, it either needs to speed up the pace, one, or keep this pace and just have like a Amazing Spider-Man release structure, like every other week type thing. But this once a month thing at this pace, I can't do it. It's killing me. The Avengers Annual number 1 is the last of the Contest of Chaos. Probably my favorite of the book, and I know that sounds petty because you guys know that I probably am not the biggest fan of this series, and so you would probably be like, oh, of course you like the last one. But no, actually, I just liked the more straightforward, okay, like this is what's happening. Agatha Harkness, trying to make a new Darkhold and contain that power within herself, has this new assembled Avengers team that are kind of possessed, that face off against the rest of the Avengers, the people who lost. Effectively, they face off in the Bermuda Triangle and are able to intervene, and specifically Captain Marvel and Scarlet Witch are able to stop Agatha before she completes the recreation of the Darkhold. But then the revelation at the end here, spoiler warning, is that she did create a new Darkhold in the form of seemingly like a young boy. So it's like the human personification of the Darkhold, which you would imagine is going to have major implications going forward. Now, some of the unfortunate news that we got out of what Marvel's announcements related to New York Comic Con was that, unfortunately, Scarlet Witch seems to be ending at number 10. But I think they also said that they have plans for the character. I would imagine that this storyline is going to tie directly into that. I don't know what that series looks like. I don't know if it's like a mini Darkhold 2 mini series or something like that, because, you know, there was the Darkhold series. So I don't know the exact direction they're going. Maybe they're going to try to do a little MCU synergy and have an Agatha series that ties into that show that they eventually want to have. I don't know exactly what their plans are, but this is going to have larger implications because this is a pretty major, significant revelation. The Darkhold's been off the table for quite a while, and if you've been reading Scarlet Witch, you know that side of her world and story has not been really relevant. Agatha made a brief appearance where they have a really good exchange in one of the issues during Steve Orlando's run, but that's been pretty much the extent of Scarlet Witch's involvement in that world. And other than that, it's been really limited. Contest of Chaos has really been the only thing that Agatha has been making moves on, so she's going to reappear at some point. I'm just curious to see what title really utilizes that storyline. Let's get into another majorly good book. Probably my favorite book of the week for sure is The Immortal Thor number 2 by Al Ewing. It continues the fight between him and I forget his name, Toranos or something like that. And it's really good. Basically, Thor is over encumbered, very obviously, of his ability to even take him out, but he is able to trap him in like a world between worlds, kind of a Terran in the fabric of space-time, pushes him through there. And Then he kind of has to deal with like the all sleep coming on because of how much power he exhausted. And then you have this really cool exchange with Loki at the end of the book that I thought was actually pretty cool, where it's like they're talking about like, do you trust me? Do you not? Whatever. And I thought that was like a pretty eerie kind of exchange between the end there. So I'm assuming Loki's gonna serve as some kind of antagonist in the next half of the series or something like that. So I'm very curious to see where he goes about it. I think there are some cool questions about, and this is something that's been broached before, but like as a hero, like how many problems are you creating versus solving? And you have a villain that appears in the first issue that otherwise wouldn't have caused all this destruction if Thor wasn't present in Midgard. So very interesting stuff. But let's keep it moving. We have Blade #3, another Bryan Hill series. Very, very good stuff. I love the action choreography. I love the art in this book specifically. And yeah, this one continues where the last one left off, where you have these group of people that are hunting this girl that Blade is working to protect at this point. So overall, it's cool. They're looking for this, I think, light sword that was created and forged by Lucifer specifically. And you have some weapons dealer that deals with like occult weaponry or something like that that is in possession of it. And so Blade is going to go after that. Reads really quick. That's the only problem with the series is, you know, they're kind of like here. There's spitball series. So like a new issue drops, you're blazed through it in like 5 minutes. And then you have to wait another month for another one. So that's the only problem with it. But overall, yeah, Blade #3, really, really good stuff. We have Star Wars Dr. Aphra #36. This is another Dark Droids tie-in. And because Dark Droids has such a straightforward premise, most of these tie-ins kind of have the same plot with different characters. And that's what you have. You have Aphra being hunted by droids. She hides. You have a team of people that they kind of meet with Leia. It's cool. Not my favorite. I'm kind of over this Dark Droids thing already, which is crazy because it's going to be a 6-month event. I think it was like from like August to January or something like that, or December. So I'm over this event. We have Moon Knight, City of the Dead #3. You know, he goes into the Duat or the afterlife to look for the soul of this child that is being controlled by this kind of afterworld underground, and get some cool action there. It's a fine series. I do like seeing the Scarlet Scarab being present there and kind of working alongside of Moon Knight. You have this really cool shot with them with a whole bunch of weaponry that I thought was pretty fun. So overall, it's cool. But continuing moving, we have The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos, #4, and this, I loved this book. This is probably my favorite issue of the series so far, and they've made a tremendous amount of progress since the beginning of this series. And finally, we have this team kind of coming together. They meet this Frankenstein-like character that rescues them from this group of people, this order, who is hunting monsters, basically. And you have Christopher Chaos with his intellect kind of resuscitating people from the dead. You have the young lady who kind of makes these green soul construct things. You have the guy who is a vampire, and so they're all kind of working together, and they go to this person for guidance on how to rescue or get not revenge, but get justice for their friend who was killed by this group. So really great stuff. And then at the end, and then at the same time, you have this cop who's trying to figure out everything that's happening here. There's implications that her mother was related to, or something happened to her mother in this town, and the rest of the cops tell her to like step down, stay out of this, but she keeps pushing and eventually brings the cops to the kids. And so now there's going to be some kind of face off. So great book. So that leads directly into the pick of the week. And I think for this week, I'm going to go with The Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. I'm so glad to be able to give that to an indie book. And I do want to give a shout out to the writer Tate Bromball under the guidance of Tiny in the Fourth, who I guess wrote the premise for this book. Yeah, so yeah, very good stuff for pick of the week this week. And let's get into the reading recs for next week. We have a pretty solid week next week. We have X-Men #27. I'm loving this kind of Fall of X era of X-Men. Jerry Duggan is doing his thing. This continues. I guess this is going to focus specifically on Cyclops, who has since been captured by Orcus. So hopefully we get some resolutions there. We have Immortal X-Men #16. The last time we got a revelation that all the mutants that are kind of in nowhere and no when, and Mother Righteous brought the version of Krakoa, or the island, to them, so they're basically saved. You have this version. I don't know if it's a version or it's actually Apocalypse, but with, you know, the Jean Grey and Logan, stuff like that. So trippy stuff. I'm excited to see where that goes. Finally, Gods #1. I'm debating whether I'm going to pick up this book physically or not. I'm definitely going to get the collected edition once out, but I don't know if I'm going to pick up the individual issues. But this is Jonathan Hickman's new cosmic level book that he's going to be talking about the various gods of Marvel. I'm very excited to see where that goes. We have Doctor Strange #8. I think it's finally going to be the proper confrontation between Doctor Strange and General Strange, you know, the one who was fighting on behalf of the Vishanti and all that. So really great stuff there. Jed MacKay's doing his thing. We have Batman #138. I think there's going to be another Batman, Catwoman, Gotham War tie-in, but Chip Zdarsky's been killing it on Batman, so I'm always down to read more of that. Poison Ivy #15. I love that it's back finally, and some really great stuff there. A new antagonist showed up in the last issue. Excited to see how that continues. And also, if you've read the last issue, you know that there was some interesting developments between Janet specifically. I called her Karen, I think, in one episode, so apologies for that. But Janet and Harley. So I'm excited to see what the implications for their relationship are and related to that, because you know that Janet is living there, at least for now. I think she's probably gonna have to move out at some point. We have Birds of Prey #2. Birds of Prey was such a good first issue, so I'm excited to see where this series goes. And finally, we're going to have some crossover between them going to Themyscira to rescue Dina's sister. So Birds of Prey #2, highly recommended. We have Peacemaker Tries Hard #6. I believe this is the last issue, if I'm not mistaken. Excellent series. If you like Black Label stuff, if you like the Peacemaker TV show by James Gunn, this is definitely the series for you. It's been a blast. I love the references to old DC stuff like the Red Bee and all that. So continue there. And then this one, a little IDW book here, we have Transformers #1 that I'm very excited about. And I think it's Philip Kennedy Johnson that's going to be writing that. Let me just verify that because I want to make sure Oh, and apologies. This is not IDW. This is Skybound Image. So this is that subdivision of Image. So apologies there. But yeah, Daniel Warren Johnson. So I'm all wrong on this. Daniel Warren Johnson, not Philip Kennedy Johnson. I get these things mixed up sometimes. But yeah, Daniel Warren Johnson is writing this. And I'm very... And drawing too. Oh yeah, that's awesome because Daniel Warren Johnson is an amazing artist as well. I read their Wonder Woman Dead Earth book. And didn't they also do a Powerbomb? Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very excited to read this new Transformers series. I haven't read Transformers before. I grew up on the series. I watched a ton of stuff. I've seen the movies. I've seen all that. But this is going to be my first time going into it. And Robert Kirkman is the name that I was trying to remember, who is in charge of Skybound. So very excited for Transformers #1. That should be a good time. So yeah, that's the show this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Pretty normal show, but we got some exciting stuff coming up as soon as we get to New York Comic Con. You know, at the end, I like to do a little bit of plugging of my own stuff. So one thing, want to plug my TikTok, continuing to do amazing work over there that I'm really proud of. I have a daily upload schedule that I'm talking about. I have a Who Is series that I introduce new characters. I do reviews for a couple books a week, depending on what comes out of what interests me that week. I have mini video essays that I put out. Not to mention, on top of that, I have some collabs that I'm working on that hopefully can come out soon. But if anything, I do have some collabs that have come out already. I want to shout out, again, Yoo-Hoo Comics Review. Did an interview with him about Ultimate Invasion. Definitely go check that out. Linking it down below. And then Zach's Comix Box that we talked about Wonder Woman. I definitely want you guys to check that out. Because if you like my content, then you're definitely going to love their content. So definitely subscribe to them. So, till next time, this is Jibreel from Jibreel Talks Comics. I'll see you guys later. Bye.